Excellent. Welcome to Meet the Candidates, our second year doing this. The Fort Edward Board of Education wants to let the public hear from the individuals running for the school board this year. We just went through the outline of the event, so I'm going to stop sharing that at this time, and I'll provide some information on how to submit a question if you'd like to a little bit later on for anybody who joins late, but I did share that ahead of time. I'd like to start with the official hat of tonight's event would be the Fort Edward football hat. As you can see, there are no names in there now, but I'm going to put in, and you probably can't see this, but I'll do that. I'm going to put John, Elaine, and Amanda into the hat. We'll shake them up. And we're going to see who gets to go first. Who's the lucky person? So going first will be John. Shake again. Going second to start will be Elaine. And then obviously the last name coming out is Amanda. I just need a second to write those down so I don't lose track. And then we'll get started.
Dan, do you want everybody to have their mic muted when they're not speaking? Yeah,
anybody who's coming on, if you could mute your mic. If I find a mic that's not muted, it isn't one of the candidates, I'm going to mute you anyways, but it'll be helpful as far as feedback goes and to make sure that everyone that's out there trying to hear is able to hear. So if you can keep your mic muted and just unmute when you're able to talk. And we're asking that tonight, this event, there's only 4 people talking this evening. One is me, and then our 3 Board of Education candidates, Elaine, John, and Amanda. That being said, we are ready to begin. I just want to make sure I have my stopwatch ready. Give me 1 second. All right. So, John, we will start with you. Could you please provide your opening remarks and statements, and please let us know why you're running for the board and what skills, experience, and knowledge you have that make you one of the best candidates for the position.
Thanks, Dan. Can you hear me? Thank you, everybody, for attending. First of all, I care about this community. We've lived here over 3 years. Our nephews go to school at Fort Edward. Our neighbors' kids go to school in Fort Edward. So from them, I've learned a true appreciation of the small school environment. I enjoy living here. We moved here to be part of a vibrant community. I think the school is essential in that community. I think that the teachers, the administration, the students, the parents, and the community as a whole deserve a board that's transparent. They deserve a board that cares about the community in an unbiased fashion and was willing to work with each other and other entities within that community. I think that I bring a culture of integrity. I think that I bring a very strong ethical background, but I also bring a nice educational background to the table. And I do have years and years of military budgetary experience in the hundreds of millions of dollars. So the figures don't intimidate me a bit. I wish everybody luck. And I think that whoever gets on this board will do a great job. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Need 1 second to reset. And moving on next to Elaine. Elaine, same thing, your opening remarks or statement. Why are you running for the Board of Education, and what skills, experience, and knowledge do you have that make you one of the best candidates for the board?
Okay. Well, I'm running for the board because I think it's time for a change. Being part of the merger study for the last year has shown that I think if we combined with Selkirk Falls, we have a chance to really offer a lot, not only for our community, but for our students and for our teachers. My background was in healthcare. I handled budgets, personnel, and had a lot of experience with that, had experience with promoting things within my department. Bringing the hospital up to par with our computer system in cardiac management. And I think I can bring a lot to that. I bring a lot with management. I think that our teachers and our students deserve better than what they have right now. And I think merging with South Glens Falls would give them the opportunities that they deserve. And that's it.
Excellent. Thank you, Elaine. And next up, Amanda, your opening remarks or statement. Why are you running for the Board of Education, and what skills, experience, and knowledge do you have that make you one of the best candidates for the board?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Amanda Durkee, and I've been a resident of Fort Edward since 2007. My husband, Jeff Durkee, is a lifelong resident of Fort Edward and a current teacher at the school. Our son, Grayson, is 5 years old, and he is in kindergarten. I'm in my 15th year as the school psychologist and special education chairperson at Johnsburg Central School in North Creek. Pretty basically, I'm running for the board because I want to be a part of the Board of Education. I have been actively involved as a community member with the Fort Edward Board of Education. I started attending Board of Education meetings back in 2015. Initially, my attendance was sporadic. However, for the last 2 school years, I have attended almost every Board of Education and Finance Committee meeting. I have done my best to stay involved, informed, and transparent. I approach things with a solution-oriented mindset. I am very good at gathering information, analyzing information, communicating with others, and then generating ideas. I have been described by others who have worked with me as diligent, passionate, and compassionate. My experience, knowledge, work ethic, communication skills, professionalism, and integrity are all qualities that make me an exceptional candidate for the Fort Edward Board of Education.
Thank you, Amanda. And next, we'll go into the question response. Again, there was 5 central questions developed by the board based on the community survey. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond. And this time, Elaine will go first. Elaine, the first question is, what can you do differently than the current board to sustain, at a minimum, the current level of educational opportunities at Fort Edward? And that one comes directly from our community survey.
That really is a hard one. I think in our current climate of our financial limitations, I think it's difficult for us to be able to offer our students what they can. I think our current board has done a phenomenal job of trying to offer what they can for our students and for our teachers. But I really think we have to look at the long game and what we can do long term to offer our students and our taxpayers. And long term, with our enrollment going down, 40 students this year, what's going to continue to happen? I really think that we have to look at what the best is for everybody in Fort Edward, not just the people that want to keep it here at all costs. I think we need to look at everybody, all the taxpayers, the people who have lived here forever. And I think we need to look at the writing on the wall.
Okay, thank you, Elaine. Next up is Amanda. Amanda, it'll be the same question. What can you do differently than the current board to sustain, at a minimum, the current level of educational opportunities at Fort Edward?
This is an interesting question, and I do not feel that anything specific needs to be done differently. I think that we need to stick with a forward-thinking and solution-oriented mindset. I feel that we should only look back for the purpose of extracting lessons learned and to help drive our decisions forward. As with everything in life, hindsight is 20/20. Looking back, I'm sure that there is plenty of room for blame, should have, could have, and would have. However, shame and blame do nothing to drive us forward. I feel very strongly that we need to continue to brush ourselves off, put our pieces back together, and move forward for our students, district, and community. A year ago, our financial hardship hit its peak due to the required payment to the county for the dewatering facility tax purposes. That payment was for $1.7 million. You cannot pay out approximately 10% of your budget in one lump sum and not have to piece yourself back together. Throughout the course of this school year, our business official, our superintendent, our Board of Education, and our district as a whole has propelled our ship forward out of financial crisis. They have worked hard to reestablish financial stability, both short-term and long-term, and I am proud of what the district has accomplished over the course of this year. Moving forward, I think that the main thing that the Board of Education and other community entities need to do is communicate. Communication leads to education. Education leads to knowledge. And I'm sure that everyone has heard this line before, knowledge is power. Let's continue to communicate so we can educate and empower our students, our district, and our community.
Thank you, Amanda. Moving on to John. John, you get to go last on this one. What can you do differently than the current board to sustain, at a minimum, the current level of educational opportunities at Fort Edward?
Well, those are tough to follow. But I think that both Amanda and Elaine had great answers. I can only say this. I think that we need to continue to cultivate a culture of cooperation between the school, the community, and the town. I think that by doing that, we can only work to grow this community. When I first moved here, people told me that that school was a huge part of the community, and that community was tied to the school in no uncertain terms. It was not separate. So we've lived in big cities and we've lived in small towns. I didn't believe it, to be quite honest with you, but I do now. And I see how that school does affect this community and vice versa. We need to work together. I think that the board, the administration, and the students and parents have done a great job hanging in there. We just need to keep hanging in there. We need to be committed to excellence. We need to work with our community members to build a community. We have wonderful teachers. We have wonderful programs. There's plenty of small schools in New York State that are very successful that have been in the position that we're in. There's absolutely no reason without hard work, fiscal responsibility, and community involvement that we cannot get back to where we need to be as a Fort Edward. Thanks.
Thank you, John. Let's see, moving on. So this time Amanda gets to go first. This would be question 2 of the prepared questions. What are your thoughts about the possible annexation to South Glens Falls? If you are elected to the board, how will you ensure that you will approach discussion and decision-making concerning the annexation with an open mind?
I am hesitant to talk too much about this at the forum tonight, and my hesitation is for one main reason, and that's timing. I feel that our focus right now needs to be on the budget vote that is occurring next week on Tuesday, the 18th from 12 to 8. The budget vote and the annexation are two completely separate things. And the more that we talk about them at the same time, the more that things get lost in translation and meshed together. I also feel that to discuss the annexation study too much at this time is putting the cart before the horse. The study is still in process, and there are steps that still need to be completed. Once the information gets formally rolled out to the communities, this is when I feel further and deeper discussion on this topic is appropriate. I can tell you that I've been actively involved with every piece of this process. I have attended all community forums, attended the pre-merger study presentation. I wrote a lengthy letter regarding the pre-merger study to the Board of Education, completed all forms and questionnaires that were distributed from the school, and finally, I have been an active member on the Annexation Study Committee. I am informed, I am educated, I do not have my head in the sand. I have a clear opinion on this, and I do not feel that the annexation is what is best for our students, district, and our community as a whole. I will be more than happy to elaborate on this in the future once the study is complete, but for now, I want this piece very, very clear. The district has put together a good and healthy budget for the 21-22 school year. It is my hope that our school budget will pass, because regardless of what happens with this annexation, we still have a district to run for at least one more year.
Thank you, Amanda. And if I'm doing this correctly, that means John is next. John, same question. What are your thoughts about the possible annexation to South Glens Falls? And if you are elected to the school board, how will you ensure that you will approach discussion and decision-making concerning the annexation with an open mind?
Well, all three of us are members of the committee, so we've all heard or more or less seen on PowerPoint the information that was provided. I am not in favor of the annexation. I don't believe that's a secret. I was on the fence at the beginning, but after looking at not only the data that the consultants provided, but data from throughout the state, I do not feel that this is the best long-term solution for not only the school, but the community. I agree with Amanda that I don't want to send mixed messages, and I don't want people to confuse the votes, which is honestly what happened the last time. I think that a lot of people were mixing messages between merging and the budget. But that being said, I don't believe it's a good long-term solution. I don't believe there's enough guarantees in that proposition. We don't know, and we have no control over how that money will be spent. We don't know about jobs for the Fort Edward teachers if we were to be annexed. We don't know, even though there's an assurance from both boards, we really don't know how long we're going to keep the Fort Edward school open. And if that school is closed and something happens, like it's sold or rented, does Fort Edward benefit from that? I don't think so. I think it's the district that owns it, and that would be South Glens Falls. They have more benefit to do this than we do. We really, and I understand that as a pro, yes, the kids get more available options, but are they really getting a better education? I don't believe that our kids are poorly educated. I think that we just need to come up a little bit, and it's just going to take the community. Somebody said once, it takes a village. Well, it's our village, and we need to do it. Thanks.
Thanks, John. Next up, Elaine, the same question. What are your thoughts about the possible annexation to South Glens Falls? And if you are elected to the school board, how will you ensure that you will approach discussion and decision-making concerning the annexation with an open mind?
Well, to start with, I guess it's no surprise that I am pro-merger. Last year, I ran on the idea that I didn't know what I don't know, and that I wanted to see what the merger study had to say. Was it going to be beneficial for Fort Edward? Was it going to be beneficial for South Glens Falls? Having been part of the study for the last year, I can say I believe it is beneficial for Fort Edward, beneficial for South Glens Falls. I had 2 kids who went through Fort Edward. Yes, they've done very well since they graduated. But my daughter, who is an educator now in Illinois, just told me this morning, when she got to college, she was ill prepared. She had 2 students in her Spanish class when she was in high school. She got into college, she didn't know Spanish. And she said that's where she would have flourished if she could have been in a Spanish class with more students. So that right there told me that, you know what? The kids need more. And I think our kids can compete on all levels. I think our teachers can compete on all levels. We have great kids. We have great students. I think we can't sustain the number of students we have. We're not going to be getting more students. We have no place for them to come from. So what we're going to end up doing is get more and more dwindling. And then what are we going to do? We're going to start spending all this money for 100 students. And what do we do? If we don't merge now, we're going to get to the point where we're not going to merge. And then we're not going to have a chance to. And then where is Fort Edward going to be? So, but my main focus is we need to let the people of Fort Edward decide. The board can't decide if this goes to the people. It has to be the people's vote, not my vote, not the board's vote. It's got to go to the people. Okay.
That's time.
Yep.
Thanks, Elaine.
Yeah.
And just so everybody out there knows, I'm not stopping everybody right at the time. I'm trying to let you finish your thoughts. But if it goes, I will raise my hand and just say that we've got to move on. But I want to make sure we get complete thoughts because that's important to everybody who's on here this evening. They want to hear complete thoughts from people. So again, if I'm doing this right, we're back up to John. And if I get it wrong, like I said, just raise your hand and let me know. So John, this would be question 3 from the outline. How will you handle actual and perceived conflicts of interest involving your personal or familial connections to other board members or school employees? And how will you handle any similar conflicts that you believe other board members might have?
Well, living in Fort Edward and having my in-laws right across the street, I've found that it's pretty darn hard to live in the village and not be somehow connected to somebody else. So that being said, I truly believe that anybody on this board, whether it's now or in the future, is professional enough to either A, admit that they have a conflict, or B, overcome that conflict and vote the right way. I think that if there is a conflict that you cannot overcome, then you should be, or whoever should be, professional enough to take that to the board and the president of the board and recuse themselves from that particular situation. If that does not happen and there's an obvious conflict and that person doesn't take themselves out of the picture, then maybe the board and the president should take some action in that. As far as myself goes, if I feel that there's a conflict, maybe something with one of the kids or, a teacher or whoever, I would more than happily discuss this with the board members to make sure that I could do this with good conscience and ethical behavior. If I didn't feel that I could vote unbiased, I would take myself out of that situation. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Elaine, same question. How will you handle actual and perceived conflicts of interest involving your personal or familial connections to other board members or school employees? And how will you handle any similar conflicts that you believe other board members might have?
For myself, I would discuss it with the board, and if there was a conflict of interest, or even if it was perceived, then I would recuse myself, because I'm not going to want to put myself or the board in a position where there would be a question about a vote that I was in on. It's just not who I am. I'm too transparent for that. So I would definitely take myself off a vote. And I think for anybody else on the board, if I had a question about it, I would bring it up to the board and discuss it as a full board, and then let the board decide.
Excellent. Thank you, Elaine. Amanda, same question. How will you handle actual and perceived conflicts of interest involving your personal or familial connections to other board members or school employees? And how will you handle any similar conflicts that you believe other board members might have?
I'd like to call a spade and acknowledge that this question is written especially for me, and I'm more than happy to answer it. I am an open, honest, and transparent person. For those who do not know, my husband is a teacher at Fort Edward, and my sister-in-law, Christina Durkee, is a current Board of Education member. These relationships could and would be considered conflicts of interest. I will say that if elected, I would not be the first person in Fort Edward or in the state of New York to have a conflict of interest on a Board of Education. How will I handle that? I can assure people that I would handle things professionally, mindfully, and openly. I would like to dive deeper into this question because I think it is important, and I think within this question there are several layers. Here is the easy layer to this question and what I know. If there is a vote that is occurring that would be considered a conflict of interest or not appropriate for me to vote on, I would abstain from that vote. Beyond that easy layer, I need further education with regards to expectations and protocols when encountering conflicts of interest. If elected to the Board of Education, there will be a new Board of Education member training that I will attend. I'm sure that a topic such as this would be covered in discussion or in the materials that we will receive. And I am sure that there are suggested protocols to follow. Once I have the guidelines about what to do if there's a conflict of interest, I would ask questions if I was still unsure. I would never willfully put myself or the district in a position where my own or the district's integrity or decision-making could be questioned. I do feel that my professional awareness, integrity, and experience far outweighs any conflict of interest that I have. If I did not truly believe this, I would not be running for this board seat. I have thought long and hard about this decision, and I feel that I am capable of effectively carrying out all of the responsibilities of this position.
Okay, and moving on to the next question, we'll start with Elaine. Elaine, this is question 4 from the outline. What experience do you have with large budgets and the school budget development process?
Well, as I previously stated, I handled the budget for the EKG department at Glens Falls Hospital. So my budget there was approximately not as big as a school, obviously. My budget was probably only between $150,000 and $200,000. But I also handled all the purchasing for the hospital and outlying clinics for their EKG machines and cardiac equipment. And I also implemented their cardiac computer management system throughout the hospital. And that included with ambulances and the emergency room and things like that. So I do have quite an extensive background with budgets and with purchasing and things. Obviously, as far as the school goes, it would be a learning curve, because I'm one of these people that if I don't know something, then I'm going to sit back and I'm going to learn from the people who already know. I'm not somebody who is just going to jump out there and say, oh, I know how to do this. Because if I don't, then I want to learn the best way. So I'm going to listen to the people that are on the board and who have been doing this for a while.
Thank you. Next up, Amanda, the same question. What experience do you have with large budgets and the school budget development process?
I do not have any direct day-to-day experience with large budgets. That is not something that is part of my professional capacity or my personal life. My experience with school budget development is what I would consider acceptable. It's not my strongest quality, but I certainly am not uninformed either. For 15 years, I have heard about Johnsburg Central School budget development and presentations. In that district, we have weathered some uncertain times, so I have experienced budget struggles through that avenue of my life as well. With regards to Fort Edward, like I stated earlier, I have attended most Board of Education and Finance Committee meetings over the course of the last 2 school years. I have notes from all of these meetings, and I have these notes nicely organized in chronological order in binders. I am extremely diligent and organized with my documentation, which helps tremendously for my own processing of information. I also think that it is important to note that the intricacies of a school budget are truly best overseen and managed by the business official, as this is their job and their area of expertise. I would like to share that I have been very impressed with our business official, Charlene. She explains things very well when she presents information, and I have learned a tremendous amount from her in attending meetings where she has spoken. I look forward to continuing, like Elaine had said as well, learning more and continuing to grow in this area.
Thank you. And then John, same question. What experience do you have with large budgets and the school budget development process?
Thank you. As far as large budgets go, before I retired from the military, I was stationed at a training command, and we had 5 separate schools. One of those schools was a predominantly academic arena where we had military members going from enlisted to commissioning programs. So each one of those schools that I was involved with had millions of dollars in budgetary funds. As far as civilian staff and contractors and buildings, building construction. When the war happened at the beginning, I was on a focus group that we were tasked with trimming $323 million from the Navy's training budget, which we did at our command without firing one person and without reducing anybody outside of retirement or natural attrition. So yes, I have been involved with budgets anywhere from the hundreds of thousands to the hundreds of millions of dollars throughout my career, both in and out of the military. The numbers don't scare me. I'm not an accountant. I don't want to be an accountant, and Charlene can surely keep her job because I definitely don't want that either. But I do know my way around finances. So I could easily adapt and understand what's going on with our budgetary funds. Thanks.
Thanks, John. Just need a second here. So we're going to move on to our last of the pre-written questions. So before we do that, I just want to take a moment to explain to everybody who's watching out there how to submit a question for the open question period. That way, while we're finishing up this, they're building my list to choose from to move forward in the program, so we don't have a delay there. So I want to take just a few minutes. So anyone on the outside who's looking to ask a question, we're doing that through a link that you can find on our school website, and I'm going to show that right now. And I'm going to enable it right now so that I can get responses on one of my screens here. And so if you are looking to submit a question, if you go out to our website and you click on this orange link right here that says submit potential questions for the Meet the Board of Education Candidates event, that's what you would click on. When you click on it, it is going to bring you to a survey that looks like this. And as I said at the beginning of the show, it looks like a lot of surveys that come out from the school. It has some information at the top for you to read. In order to submit a question this evening, you do have to provide your first and last name. You have to tell me which candidate, or candidates, or all candidates you'd like to have the question directed to, and your affiliation with Fort Edward. And then the last step is to type your question in. Certainly any questions that are derogatory or inappropriate will not be used. I also want to be perfectly transparent. We do have a timed event this evening. Likely we will not get to all questions if there are many questions in there, but we do hope to ask an additional 2 or 3 questions of each candidate. So that is open. So people are free to put questions in there. I do hope you'll listen to the response of the last question that we're going to have from the pre-written questions, and we'll continue on from there. So Amanda, coming to you. Many families in our community are hopeful for a full reopening of our school next fall. What do you feel are the key items that must be considered in preparing and implementing a full reopening?
This one is really short and sweet for me. I could have talked much longer about questions 1, 2, and 3, and I really had to hack away at my original responses to stay within a time frame. I think that it's everyone's hope that school districts can operate much more normal for the 21-22 school year. And I'm cautiously optimistic that that will be the reality for us. I don't know how much of a say we as the Board of Education will have with regards to this. Department of Health and New York State Education Department truly drive that ship. Once there is clear guidance and guidelines from those entities, then everyone across the state, the region, and the county can plan accordingly. Beyond that, I don't have much else for that piece. You're muted, Dan.
I thought I was going to make it through without doing that once in this event. Thank you. So moving back to the top of my list to John. John, same question. Many families in our community are hopeful for a full reopening of our school next fall. What do you feel are the key items that must be considered in preparing and implementing a full reopening?
Well, I think a few things deserve to happen. So I think the first thing with the families, are you ready? Are you ready to send your son or daughter back to school? Logistically, do we have transportation set aside? Do we have childcare? If you're going back to work now and your son or daughter's going back to school, is that something that you're ready to happen? Are the teachers ready? We've been doing half remote. They've been on the computer. They haven't had full classrooms. Are they mentally and emotionally prepared to deal with all those kids at one time after a year of being off? I think they would be excited to get back in the classroom. Is the administration ready? Are you ready to handle all the questions? Are you ready to handle all the crying? Are you ready to handle the first grader that hasn't been in real school before, every day for a week, wants mom or dad, or even grandma because she gives the best snacks? Are you ready? The second thing is excitement. If we're going to go back to school, we need to start building excitement in the community. get these kids and the parents excited about getting back in that classroom and make it fun. This is an opportunity for our school and every school to take advantage of something that is going to be brand new to a lot of kids coming back to a classroom. I think as a board, no, do we directly impact these decisions? Absolutely not. But can we reach out to the community and make this an event? Can we make this something to look forward to? Can we help the teachers and the administration be ready? Absolutely. But the first and foremost is those kids have to be excited to come back. They have to be ready to sit in those seats, and the teachers and they have to be ready to be a team and start learning face to face again. Thanks.
Thanks, John. So just want to make sure that I say it once again. The question link is live. I do have one in there that I'm going to ask right now, and it's going to be directed at all candidates. So that means, oh no, I forgot. I got to do Elaine. Sorry, Elaine. I did great till the end. Oh my goodness. Sorry, Elaine. Many families in our community are hopeful for a full reopening of our school next fall. What do you feel are the key items that must be considered in preparing and implementing a full reopening?
I'm going to be short and sweet because I agree with Amanda. We don't have a lot of control over this. I think it has to do with the education department. And I think if they say it's a go, our kids, our teachers, our parents, everybody will be ready for it. Because I have kids in Illinois, and they went back full time about 4 weeks ago, and everybody handled it beautifully. So I think come September, our kids will be back in school full time, and everything will work out with no problem. We'll be good to go.
Thank you, Elaine, and I do apologize for my
That's okay.
I was thinking about what John had said about all the crying. I do know I've done a considerable amount of crying here this year, so I don't know if he was talking about the people who work here or the kids coming back. But we will move on.
You muted yourself again, Dan.
So I would be back to the top with John, and I have a question. The question is coming from Chris Boucher. He's asking for the question to be answered by all candidates. And I believe everybody on this call probably knows who Chris is, but he did put in and filled it in his affiliation. He's a 46-year resident of Fort Edward. So now we know how old Chris is. And here is the question, and thanks to Chris for putting it in there. So to you first, John, how familiar are you with the demographics and the needs of our current students and their families?
Well, Chris, you're not as old as I am, but getting there. I'm not overly familiar with the demographics as far as actual data and numbers. However, I do know what kind of situation my neighborhood lives in, and I want to say that I don't see anybody that's extremely wealthy in Fort Edward as far as, a mansion, and I don't see anybody that's, not. But I think that we're a typical middle-class community that deserves the best care. And so to answer your question shortly, I don't know the data, so I can't answer that honestly. I just know what I see when I walk around the village with the dog, and I know what I see in my neighborhood. I'll become more educated on that, I hope. But I think that, we just all have a responsibility to each other to take care of each other.
Thank you, John. And next to Elaine. Elaine, the same question. How familiar are you with the demographics and needs of our current students and their families?
I'm probably not as informed about students and their families, But looking at the entire village, I think we have students in need. We have families that don't have students that are in need. So I think we have both. We have middle class, we have lower income, we have elderly trying to keep their homes. So I think we need to look at all of that going forward.
Awesome. Thank you, Elaine. And Amanda, same question. How familiar are you with the demographics and needs of our current students and their families?
I think that's a great question and a good area to actually think about and bring to the attention of prospective Board of Education members. I think it's an area that I would need to get more information on, like the others are saying also. There are a few pieces that I think I do know and understand. The one area that I would say that I know is the fact that our whole school is on the free and reduced lunch program. So that being a fact, that kind of shows you what your demographics are of the population that you're serving within your district. So that piece I know. The other information that I have, I really wouldn't even be comfortable like reporting out on it because it's technically what would be considered hearsay. You know, I've heard it from, people who maybe work in the district or different things like that. And so I feel like I have an understanding, I have a general awareness. I don't think that we're that much better or worse than any other districts. I think that it's an area that would need to be gather more information on to make sure that we are meeting all of the needs of our families.
Thank you, Amanda. So that was the only question I received through the link, and I just went on while Amanda was providing her response to make sure the link is working. I was able to put a response in myself, so I know it's working. So we'll give it, I say we give it about 2 minutes, right? And while we're giving it 2 minutes, I'm going to skip ahead and provide some of my reminders. And I'll probably do it a second time if we get another question. But if not, if we don't get any more questions by the time I'm finished, then we'll close for the evening. But I want to thank all three candidates for being on tonight and participating. Although I spent many hours over the last couple of years on these types of things with lots and lots of community members watching and listening, I know that's not necessarily normal for everyone. So I thank you for taking the time to be here and adapting to the way we have to do this. And I want to let you know the board really appreciates it. And I'm certain that the community does as well. Some final information. Just want to make sure everybody here knows that the Board of Education election and budget vote is next Tuesday, May 18th, on my daughter's birthday, from noon to 8 in the elementary lobby. It is an in-person vote this year. So you have to come out to vote. If you are looking for an absentee ballot, the deadline to have that mailed to you has passed. That deadline would have been the 11th. And absentee ballots that are out there in the community must be received by the district clerk, Toby Bissett, by 5 p.m. on the day of the election, May 18th. We want everybody to have a chance to vote. And there's one other piece of information I wanted to share, and I'm thinking that most likely everybody on this call may have already heard this or know this. But there's an article that was in the Post-R that ran. It started Monday evening as an online article, and there was a pretty critical error in that article. And I just had barely traveled home from our board meeting and got to my house and got a few messages. And incorrectly, the Post-R had put in their online version that individual taxpayer who owned a house of $100,000 assessed value, that their taxes was going up $207. That was incorrect. They also said the rate was going up by $2.07. That was incorrect. I was able to make some telephone calls quickly that evening. It was changed quickly online, at least part of it was, and the change was also made on the $62 rather than the $207 before it went to print. The part that did not get changed before it went to print was the part about that stated that the tax rate was going up by $2.07 per thousand. So I want to make sure everybody has the correct information. The correct information, ironically, was shared at the budget hearing that same night, just an hour or so before that article was released. The correct information is, based on the most recent assessment values that we've received from the Real Property Office in Washington County, that a house assessed at $100,000 will pay $62 more than they did last year in school taxes. The rate is going up 62 cents from $29.28 last year to $29.90 this year, with the most current assessment values available to me as of tonight, a matter of fact. So I just wanted to take a moment to say that. Certainly, the Post-Star makes mistakes. They're humans like everybody else. And I do appreciate that they took the time to change it as quickly as they could. And I just wanted to make sure everybody in the public, or anybody who listens to recording afterwards, is able to get that correct information. So I did get one more question. So this is going to be our last question for this evening, and it's going to be directed to all of the participants, all the candidates here tonight. And it looks like this time I start with Amanda. Oh no, I start with Elaine. Sorry, I start with Elaine on this one. I've got my little check marks here. Give me 1 second to get the whole question. Okay, Elaine, to you first. And I realize that this you're going to have probably a pretty quick answer to this. If you are against the idea of a potential merger, what is your solution to our continued financial problem? And what will happen if we don't merge and our financial problems continue? And I can repeat it if you want me to, since it's a quick question.
Yeah, I'm for the merger. And I think if we don't merge, then we are going to continue to go down that slippery slope. And I think we're going to continue to have these, because we look at, so last year we paid $29.28 per 1,000. And this year we're paying $29.90. Really? So we're going up, up, up again. And I am one of the few retired people. My husband and I, we can pay this. But you know what? There's a lot of people in this village that can't. And that's who I am running for. I'm running for the kids. I'm running for the people, but I'm running for the taxpayers.
Thank you, Elaine. Next to Amanda, it's going to be the same question, and I'll read it again. If you are against the idea of a potential merger, what is your solution to our continued financial problem? And what will happen if we don't merge and our financial problems continue?
So I'd like to clarify with regards to continued financial problem, because what I had stated earlier is information that I have gathered from being at the Board of Education meetings and the Finance Committee meetings. Last year, the bomb went off, which was that $1.7 million that needed to be paid back. That was a big deal. Now we have spent this year putting ourselves back together, and we have made tremendous financial gains and improvement. And I can't remember which meeting it was, if it was the Finance Committee meeting earlier this month or the Board of Education meeting, but Charlene stated that by June, we will be out of financial stress. That is huge. That is remarkable. That is noteworthy. So my answer to that question is we just keep putting one foot in front of the other. We just keep looking at the big picture. Charlene is working on 5-year plans. Charlene is working on putting pieces together as best she can with what we have. She's doing a phenomenal job. I think we have to be patient in the process. I think we need the gift of time. I think we're going to be okay.
Thank you, Amanda. And last, back to the one we started with, John. You'll get to have our last response for tonight. So I'll read the question again. If you are against the idea of a potential merger, what is your solution to our continued financial problem? And what will happen if we don't merge and our financial problems continue?
I can only agree with Amanda about the financial status of the district, which she is definitely correct. So we did have the bombshell, absolutely right. We could have used reserved unrestricted funds this year to lessen the load. And sure, it would have looked great. But what happens after that? We need to stop looking at short-term solutions to solve a long-term problem. The only way to solve this problem, and it's not a problem, it's an issue, is we need to come together as a community. We need to support each other. We need to create business downtown. This is going to bring people in. We need to make Fort Edward attractive for people to move to. We need to make areas of this city or the village attractive for businesses to come into, to create employment, to create revenue. Is it going to happen overnight? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But it will happen. It will, with perseverance and our nose to the grindstone, fiscal responsibility at the board and school level, fiscal responsibility at the village level, and a cooperation between the three. Am I for the annexation? No, I'm not. I don't feel it's the solution. And as I stated before, there's no real guarantees with this. That money can be spent however that board decides to spend it. And let's face it, a board term is 5 years. The board that you're looking at right now may not be the board going forward. I think it's a soft way to do it. I think it's a short-sighted way to do it. We need to be in this for the long haul. We need to be in this for the long term. Let's not be defeatist. Let's be cautiously optimistic and do the right thing. Thank you.
Thanks, John, for your comments. And again, one last thank you for everybody who participated tonight, and also for everybody who came out and got online to hear or see the event. We truly do appreciate it. And speaking for the board, thank you so much. We certainly hope that you'll come out and support our school budget, and you'll vote for the candidates who you feel meet the needs of our school district the best moving forward.
Are you going to do our closing remarks, Dan? We did have closing remarks. Are you getting to that? I'm sorry. I thought you were wrapping up. Sorry.
No, I'm getting there. Don't worry. I'm good, because we're going to do it and then we'll be done. You broke my rhythm. So I'll have to close again, but here we go. Moving back to the outline. The last piece tonight. Each candidate has 1 minute to make closing remarks. And since Elaine went first on that last question, that means, Amanda, you will be first with closing remarks. So when you're ready, you have 1 minute.
Sorry, I cut you off, Dan. I saw people leaving, so I thought they were. I thought you were wrapping up. I want to say, bottom line, I love this community, the school, the village, the town, the people. I'm technically a transplant to this community, but the amount of love, passion, and compassion that I have for this community as a whole is immeasurable. If elected to the Board of Education, I would continue to encourage people to look forward. I would encourage people to be solution-oriented instead of problem-oriented. I would encourage all of us to continue working the problems and not allow the problems to work us. We need to continue to proceed with open communication, determination, grit, and knowledge. Our students, district, and community as a whole are worth every ounce of time, energy, and effort that I have already dedicated. And they will be worth every ounce of those things that I will dedicate in the future. We are Fort Edward. We are worth it. We will persevere. Thanks,
Amanda. Moving on next to, so I go back to the top, right? Moving on next to John.
Let's be the village we want our children, grandchildren, and other people's grandchildren and children to move to and live in. Let's be the school that we want our kids to go to. We can do this. Is it tough? Absolutely. Is it going to be a lot of hard work? Yes. Are we going to have to make decisions as a board and as a community that, hey, they're hard. They're hard decisions. Some of them aren't popular. Some of them you're not going to like. That's not our job as a board. The board's job is to make the right decisions for the right reason and for the good of the entire community. You may not like it, but you'll appreciate it in the long run. I promise you that whoever gets these board seats, whether it's Amanda, Elaine, or myself, will work hard for you. We'll do our best job. We'll do it ethically, and we'll do it with respect. But let's move in the right direction, not backwards, forwards, with our heads down, our nose to the grindstone, and let's get it done like a real community should. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And last but not least, Elaine, you're going to have our last set of closing remarks tonight when you're ready.
Okay. As a 68-year resident here, I have lived here my entire life. Still have the same friends that I've had since I was born. Raised my children here. I think going forward, it's time for us to move into the next century for our children. I want Fort Edward to flourish. I volunteer in Fort Edward. Fort Edward has my heart. I've never moved. I've always lived here. And I agree with John. Any of the three of us that they pick is going to do well for the village. We've all got Fort Edward in our hearts. I would say I'm the pick because I'm the alternative to the other two. So let the voting begin. And I hope that in the end, the board will allow the people to vote on the merger. That's the important thing. It should be up to the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. So my last closing, please get out and vote. Tuesday, May 18th, noon to 8 in the lobby. And if you have an absentee ballot that you've received, make sure it's back in by 5 p.m. on the 18th. Excuse me. Lastly, good luck to all of us on our school budget vote, and good luck to all three of the Board of Education candidates. Thanks, everybody, and have a great night.